So what my parents were teaching me, without even know that they were teaching me, and I didn't know they were teaching me, was how to do customer service. Show appreciation, ask for feedback, act on the feedback, improve the process. I was learning this at age 12.
Leadership is everywhere. In our work, in our family, in our community. We see leaders by their actions. We know their legacy. This podcast is about leaders, people just like you, doing amazing things every day. I hope these stories inspire you, they motivate you, and they fuel your leadership legacy. My name is Vicki Guy. Welcome to Ignite.
Hi, and welcome to Ignite. Today, we're talking about a really big topic, customer service. We tend to throw that word around as if everybody knows what it means and interprets it the exact same way. And if you examine the core values of almost every single company, you will find that they all focus on providing a valuable customer experience. And it makes sense, right? I mean, clearly, without the customer, there's no product or service. But for those of you who are leaders in your company, it goes much deeper. Customer service applies to the people within your very own organization. And many of my clients focus on employee growth and engagement for just this reason. They want to help their people do better with their customers. A recent Gallup poll suggested that 71% of the millennial workforce are not engaged in their work. So how does that translate into the customer experience? Well, it's huge. For a company to become a market leader, customer service must be stellar and permeate throughout the whole organization. And we feel it. Have you ever walked away from a business and thought, that was an amazing experience? Well, our guest today, Shep Hyken, a New York Times bestselling author and an award-winning keynote speaker, will share with us how to create that experience within an organization. In his book, The Convenience Revolution, he outlines 6 principles on how to disrupt the market and beat your competition. After this short break, we'll be back to talk to Shep.
My name is Dana Morrison. I'm the IT director at Grace Christian School in Raleigh, North Carolina. IT directors often hoard so much knowledge that it's hard for their team members to learn. IT Pro TV has given us the ability to level up our technicians to a point where they can decide, this is important for me to learn. I would recommend IT Pro TV to any IT team. It's just a great tool for any IT professional.
Welcome back to Ignite. Today, we are here with Shep Hyken. He is the New York Times bestselling author, as well as a award-winning keynote speaker. Shep, welcome to Ignite.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Today is all about customer service, and I know one thing is going to happen. I know that when we put this podcast out into the marketplace and people see the title, they see your name, they see some of the things that we're going to talk about, they're going to want to jump in and get some really good pearls of wisdom about how can we be better at customer service.
Great. I promise to do that.
Yeah, but I don't want to go there yet. Yet. Because I actually, I started thinking about our conversation and thinking about the fact that you have taken one topic, customer service, which is a big, chunky topic, and you have written books, you've done keynotes, you've got a TV show, you've got a podcast. You have built your career in being a leader in customer service. And that, to me, is mind-blowing in itself. So I'm wondering, of course, the question is, what drives that passion in that topic of customer service?
Sure. And it's customer service and experience today. It used to be just customer service. Then people started calling it customer experience because it sounded sexier. Mm-hmm. And then experience expanded out beyond service. And that kind of forced me to stay, I'm still in my lane, but I've kind of widened it a little bit because there's other ideas. Think about when, there's service when you interact with people, but the experience goes beyond that. When you opened up, I don't know what kind of a phone you have, but if you ever open up an Apple product like an iPhone or an iPad, it's like, wow, just the box is cool. Well, that's part of the whole experience. So we talk about how you amaze the customer, and now companies are focused on, going beyond just the interaction. So your question, what drives my passion? Aside from that, I love what I do. Where did it all start? And I can go all the way back to when I was a little kid,
Okay.
12 years old. I did a birthday party magic show. I started this business back then at age 12. And my first party, I think I was like 12. It was a Wednesday after school. My mom picked me up, drove me over to this kid's house. There were a bunch of little screaming kids. I entertained them. And I came home and my mom said, "What are you going to do after dinner?" Now, remember, it's a school night. So I thought, homework, right? That's what you usually do. And she said, "Not until you write a thank you note to the nice people that just paid you to do that magic show." I thought, great idea. And then my dad jumps in. He says, "That is a great idea, but next week, let's take it to another level. I want you to call the parents up. I want you to thank them again, because by that time they will receive the thank you note, and then ask them, what'd you think of the show? How'd you like it? What tricks did you like the best?" And get some feedback. And after you do a few shows, if you keep asking the question, what tricks did you like the best, you'll start to hear the ones that everybody likes, and you won't hear about a few that nobody likes. And get rid of those and put in better tricks. Great idea. So what my parents were teaching me, without even know that they were teaching me, and I didn't know they were teaching me, was how to do customer service. Show appreciation, ask for feedback, act on the feedback, improve the process. I was learning this at age 12. So when I decided to do what I do for a living, which I started out purely as just I want to be a speaker on a topic. I had this magic background. I eventually worked in nightclubs and through college. I had some regular jobs too. And I decided to become a professional speaker after watching Zig Ziglar and Tom Hopkins. You're way too young to know who they are. So anyway, I watched those guys. I said, I can do that. So, but what am I going to talk about? So I went to the bookstore, and there was not that many books back then. Gosh, maybe a shelf or two shelves of books at the most. And I kept pulling out the ones that were focused on customer service. Ron Zemke, America, or At Your Service America, something like that. Tom Peters, In Search of Excellence. And I pulled these books and I go, well, this is what I want to read about and eventually write about and talk about. And really, that's where it all started, and I've never wavered. I've just been very passionate about it and love all the new things that are happening today in the world of customer service and experience with artificial intelligence, interacting with customers, working with support agents, how it's creating a better experience for everybody, the digital channels that customers now connect with in customer service. So anyway, I'm going on and on, but I'm excited.
Yeah.
And that's the passion.
And that's contagious because I'm excited about what we're about to talk about as well. But what's interesting is that, you said your parents did this without even knowing. They kind of planted a seed for you that sparked your entire career. Had they been in kind of a customer service field or a service industry themselves to kind of have that thought that, okay, I'm going to push my son to say thank you? Or was it just that, hey, we just want our son to grow up and be polite and respectful? Like, which was it?
The latter.
Okay.
They just wanted to teach me. I could say, and I'll tell you, sometimes my mom says, I don't know exactly what he does, but he never asks me for money. So she used to say that for years until I finally invited her to one of my speeches and she figured it out. Today she says, I thought all you did was speeches. And of course we have training and everything else. But yeah, my parents just wanted me to do the right thing. And my dad wanted me to be successful at doing this. So he made that suggestion. I don't think they knew they were teaching me customer service lessons. My dad was an amazing salesperson. He sold insurance and had a little towboat company. And when he finally passed away, he had this sandwich company. He had a bunch of, it was a pretty big operation. He provided a whole region of microwave sandwiches. I knew I would never starve. So
as long as you had a microwave.
As long as I had a microwave, and just let them thaw out and they'll be just fine. You don't even have to cook them. But seriously, I just think they just want me to do the right thing. And it was the right thing. And so much of customer service is just doing the right thing. It's common sense. It's not always so common. And I'm always amazed at sometimes what I would call service incompetence. It's like, don't they realize it's all these people in here that have money in their pocket that are paying for what they sell? We're the ones that keep the lights on and the building open and the employees employed. But many people often don't remember that, which is why guys like me come in and remind them of that and many other basic essentials they have to have, as well as some pretty advanced concepts when we talk to leadership and management.
So as you were doing this research on your own and starting to learn more about this topic and speaking more on the topic, you, I'm sure, have been involved in situations where you've seen really good examples of customer service and really poor examples as well. Without sharing what exactly it was in terms of the company, can you give us an idea of kind of the thing that really, when you see it, it just makes you crazy that somebody would actually do this in customer service or experience.
It's like, you're treating me like a number or, an account versus a person. That drives me a little bit crazy. The redundancy in questions, being forced to go from tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3 and having to repeat the story over and over again. The what I would call the incompetence sometimes. I mean, I love to tell the story. I started telling it last summer. I was at a meeting in Dallas, Texas. I went to a very fancy restaurant. There were 8 of us around the table. We all had salads coming with dinner. Everybody's salad was a beautiful salad overflowing with green lettuce and tomatoes. And then one guy's salad bowl or salad dish had like hardly anything on it. Like there was maybe a third of the salad. Like some of it had fallen off or something. And the server set them all down. And my buddy says, "Excuse me, sir, but look at my salad. I mean, theirs are really nice looking salads, but what happened to mine?" And the guy says, "Hey, I don't make them. I just serve them." And I thought he had to be joking, but he wasn't joking. He just walked away. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? And I look at that. I think that's an incompetent attitude, a bad attitude, didn't know what to do. All he would have had to do have said, "Hey, I'm sorry I didn't notice this. I'm sorry. Let me go back and get another one. I'll be right out." Instead, what he did is he didn't acknowledge it. He didn't apologize for it. He threw everybody in the kitchen under the bus saying, "Hey, I don't make them. I just serve them. It's their fault." No ownership of this problem whatsoever. And there was no acting, to fix the problem at all. And, I'm not going to tell you the names of the airlines, but they're all guilty of this. We pull in and it's like, okay, we're waiting to pull up to the gate and I'm sorry, we're waiting for the people to taxi us in. Well, we're already 10, 15 minutes late. You think they would know we're coming. We're nowhere late. Then we finally get us pulled up there. There's nobody on the ramp to bring the ramp close to the plane. I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to miss my flight because of ground crew incompetence. And this happens with every airline at some point. And I know there's lots of reasons it happens, but you know what? That's no excuse. It's a timed thing. They're going to take an entire plane and make them late to something. But I can go on and on with bad examples. But you know what? I love to focus on the good ones. We can learn from both the good and the bad. But when you take a look at the rock stars that are out there, either as individuals or as companies, you say, what are they doing that we're not doing that we could be doing? And if you look at yourself, not even comparing yourselves to bad companies, what is it that we do that causes friction to our customers that maybe we can take a look at and improving that experience at that moment that they interact with us?
You mentioned Dallas, and one of my favorite stories that you tell is about the taxi driver that you met in Dallas. Yeah. And I would imagine that obviously made an impression on you in terms of what good customer service and a good experience looks like.
Yeah, and you want to know what really made the impression? First of all, I was very impressed with the guy to begin with. At first, I wasn't because he kind of looked like a bum, the way he was dressed. And by the way, it was the hottest day of the summer. He'd been working all day. He looked a little disheveled, and he was probably tired, and I get it. But nice as can be, the cab was spotlessly clean. He had sodas for me to drink and newspapers for me to read and had really nice conversation. And all this was good, and I can go on and on with the story. We don't need to tell that here, but I'll tell you what I would call, if it's not a punchline, but like the thing that just went, wow, this is amazing. And that is 4 days later, I'm in my office in St. Louis, Missouri, and I open up my mail, and there's a thank you note from the cab driver. He'd asked me for a business card as he dropped me off, and sure, and he gave me his, but I thought, a thank you note from a cab driver. It's never happened.
His dad called you, or your dad called him.
My dad called him.
Your dad called him.
Right.
Yeah.
My mom called him.
Your mom called him. Okay.
My mom called him to say, "Hey, write a thank you note."
Yeah.
Very good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But every holiday, like Christmas time, I'd get a holiday card. Every time I'd go to Dallas until he retired, he would pick me up and take me around. And the guy really figured it out. He figured out he'd either have to wait at the airport with all of the other cab drivers, sometimes 2 or 3 hours to pick up a person to go downtown if they were lucky. That was a $22 flat rate back then. Then they would go back to the airport, wait another couple hours. Hard way to make a living. And they're doing that 6 to 7 days a week, but they only worked a half a day, 12 hours. So think about that. Anyway, he figured out that if he was really good, he wouldn't have to wait in line. He'd just wait for his customers. And that's exactly what happened. So he did the right thing, figured it out.
He figured it out for sure. You probably have so many of these stories that either good or bad, right, or somewhere in between. How have those shaped your ability to be a leader in your space?
Well, great story. So I love to share lessons by example. And whenever I come in to my office and we sit down for a typical Monday morning meeting or whatever the first day of the week is that I'm in town, we have our meeting. One of the things we do is we all share a story. We tell the story of the great service experience we created for either an internal customer, one of our own team members, or an outside customer, one of our clients. And that's a cool way of keeping everybody aware of when they're creating great service. And once in a while, we come up with great stories. I mean, imagine an agent called me at the last minute, like the day before an engagement, and said, "Are you available tomorrow?" "Yes, I am." "Well, here's the deal. There's not a lot of money here, but the speaker just fell down the stairs and broke his leg and can't speak." And I said, "Look, it doesn't matter about the money. As a matter of fact, whatever the money the speaker was going to make, send it to that speaker. I'm going to go take care of your client for you." And it goes around, comes around, because that's just a nice gesture to make. That's a great moment of magic. And then there's other times it's like a client. Well, here's another one just happened. By the way, at my age, an all-nighter is just staying asleep all night, okay? Without having to get up to go to the bathroom. So I jokingly say I'm really not that old, but I just think it's funny. So at about 3:30 in the morning, I got up in the middle of the night. I don't know why, and I went to the bathroom, and I don't know why I looked at my iPhone to check my email. That's the worst thing you can do. And I noticed that one of my international clients from the other side of the world, they're 13 hours difference from us, sent me an email. And I emailed her back at like 3:30 in the morning. And then I went back to bed. And I got up this morning and she said, "Unbelievable. You emailed me within 10 minutes. And I knew it was the middle of the night." I texted her back. I was on or emailed her with my thumbs early this morning when I finally did wake up. I said, "Don't get used to it."
Right. Right. Yeah.
I said, "I will always respond to you, usually within 1 business hour, ideally, unless I'm on an airplane or doing a speech. And if you send something to my entire team, that's our minimum standard, is that it will always be within an hour, ideally within 5 to 10 minutes. And that's if an email comes in that's going to all of us as opposed to just an individual. So, and most of the time when clients are sending things about speeches or our training projects, they know we're always sending and including all of us on, or the appropriate people on the team. So there's more than one contact. So somebody's always responding, which, by the way, is not only to keep everybody in our team aware of what's going on, but that way the client gets a better level of service, because if the client sends something to me and copied Claire or Cindy or someone else on the team, and I'm not available, I'm on the other side of the world doing a speech, and it happens to be middle of the night over there, they can jump in and take care of things and manage the experience for the client.
So it sounds like a lot of these experiences that you've been able to take, and on Monday morning or whenever that team meeting comes together, you guys share those experiences. You then translate those into habits in your own organization.
Right.
And that has created a lot of success for you. Yeah.
And habits are really important. I wrote a book, this is the second to last book, called Be Amazing or Go Home. Matter of fact, where is it? I'll show it. There it is. Be amazing or go home. So let me tell you how this book came about. And it's basically, it says 7 customer service habits. It's really 35 habits, because there's 7 main categories, and then there's 5 examples of different habits that support the main habit. And one of the habits, by the way, the whole book started when my assistant at the time showed up late. Big deal. Then the second day and the third day, and by the 4th day in a row, I said, this is becoming a habit, a bad habit. So I brought her in. I said, "Look, what's our mantra here at Shepherd Presentations?" And she said, "Always be amazing." Nobody forgets that. Those are 3 words that we're always thinking about. We want to be amazing to each other, to our clients, and for our clients to be amazing to their clients. That's what we teach them. And I said, "Do you think you represent me? You represent everything about me, my work ethic. I mean, you obviously don't need to work the hours I do, but the basic work ethic is showing up 4 days late." By the way, not like 1 minute late. Sometimes it was 10, 15 minutes late. And I believe that when we're open for business at 8 a.m., we're ready to go. We're not like just got in. It's going to take a few minutes for my computer to turn on and all that. No, we're ready to go at 8. So I said, "Is this amazing behavior?" And she said, "No." I said, "Well, here's the choice. I need you to step up and be amazing or go home." And I said it, and I thought, ooh, that was pretty abrupt. And she looked at me, and we had a great relationship. She says, I always talked to her like her dad. It was always like talking, tough like that. And she said, that is a great title for a book. You need to write that down. So I did. Be amazing or go home. And habit number 1 is about showing up on time, ready to amaze, and what that definition is. And that's not just, walking in at 8 o'clock for an 8 o'clock start. It's like, are you ready to go? If I walked over to you at 8:01, would you be ready to answer a question? Would the computer be up and running? Would you have already gotten the coffee that, it takes you 10 or 15 minutes to get your coffee and, put something in the toaster oven in the kitchen or whatever. And the answer was for her, no. But guess what? She turned that around real quick. And I even told her, I said, if you're here at the end of the year, it means you fixed the habit. It was probably about July or August when this was happening. And she was there at the end of the year. I said, I promise you a big raise. Turns out the reason she was late is she moved from 2 miles away to like 20 miles away. And she couldn't figure out how early she had to get to work to be on time. And I didn't realize she moved. She was trying to keep her personal things separated from business, which is very professional, very nice. And there's some reasons it happened that she probably at that point didn't want to share. So I said, you have this all wrong. You don't leave earlier. That's not what amazing people do. You don't say, I'll leave 5 minutes earlier tomorrow and see how it works out. You leave really, really early, get here like way too early and think, tomorrow I'm going to leave 5 or 10 minutes later and see what happens. And you work the other direction. And she goes, sometimes it's opposite thinking that really separates you from others and makes you or helps you make great decisions for others. Anyway, she was around at the end of the year, and I said, my suggestion, because I could tell you hate this hour-plus long drive both directions, why don't you find a job closer to home? I'm not suggesting you do that, but you might be happier. She goes, I've been thinking about it, and I think, I don't get home till after 6, and now I got to cook for the kids, and it's really hard. I said, yeah, you just need to find something close. And so I said, I'll support you. You don't have to tell me now, but when you find something, just let me know. And so a few weeks later, she said, I found a chiropractic office. It's like right down the street from where I live. I'm going to try working there. I go, cool. When do you want to start? And a 3 weeks later, she's working over there. So that's the way. I mean, I hope that, and we're still great friends. We, Facebook each other. Is that a verb? Is that a verb now?
It's an action for sure. Yeah, Facebook each other. So what's interesting is that you learned a lot of these lessons and habits from your team. And I want to shift a little bit from the success that you've had with your career to organizational leadership. And a lot of the companies that I work with and the clients that I serve, I can tell you that most of them, if not all of them, one of their core values is something to do with the customer satisfaction, customer focus,
Usually is.
Right? But not all companies, even though it's a core value, not all companies become market leaders, right? So something has to happen to set them apart. And I know you wrote a book recently around this topic, around...
Well, I wrote a book. The most recent book is The Convenience Revolution. Just happen to have a copy of that right here.
I love it. There it is.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
But that's not the book that really focused on the, I talk about amaze every customer every time. That's one of the books I wrote just a few years ago. Before that was The Amazement Revolution. You can tell I like that word amazing.
Amazing.
But so here's the point I think you're trying to get to. Number one, companies have core values. They have mission statements. And if you and I were to go ask your clients, all of them, hey, can you recite your mission statement? How many of them you think could do that?
Not many.
Not many. I would say, I think you can sit in the C-suite with all the executives and high-level managers, and you would embarrass people because they can't recite it.
I actually, sorry to interrupt you. I do ask that question. So I can tell you for a fact that when I do ask that question, not many. They might say, well, something about the customer, or they might have an idea, but their interpretation of what that means is really not very clear.
Right. Yeah. So when it comes to customer service, and I believe when it comes even to a mission statement, I think the mission statement shouldn't be like a document that is printed beautifully and hung on the wall for everyone to see. It's something that needs to be memorized. It needs to be easy enough and simple enough to memorize. My favorite, I call it a mantra, they call it a credo, comes from the Ritz-Carlton Horst Schultz came up with this idea when he was a teenager and had to write a paper about the hospitality industry. And the 9 words of the title of his paper were ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And when he became the co-founder and first president of the Ritz-Carlton as a hotel group and wanted to create the finest hotels in the world, he came up with this mantra. Actually, he brought it to the group. And by the way, it's since I think the 1980s is when they started. So you can do the math. It's been like 30 plus years and they're still using the same one. They recognize this is what we do. I was with a company last year and they came up with a wonderful line. They said, this is it. This is what we're all about. I go, man, what a great mantra. I just talked to them this week and I said, so we're going to build on what we talked about last year. Oh, we don't talk about that anymore.
Oh, no.
Oh, you're kidding me. You lost this opportunity. So it needs to be consistent. It needs to be defined. And I call that, defining your vision, at least for service. And then I have several other steps. You need to communicate it. You need to train everybody to it. And that means everybody, not just on the front line, but everybody needs to understand where they fit in. Leadership needs to demonstrate it. Leadership needs to defend it when somebody or some group goes out of alignment. Maybe it's an entire department. Maybe it's a region of a larger company. And then finally, step 6 is to celebrate it when it works. But that first part, defining the vision. And when you look at all of the mission statements that companies have, and they're huge and long and cumbersome to read, if not memorize. And then there's all these core values. Now, I think it's okay to have a number of core values, but what do you use those core values, and how do you communicate them? How do you use them? And we'll go back to Horst and his concept of his credo. Well, underneath the credo were 24 drivers that made that, where ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen statement happen. 24. And if you go, and they haven't changed in years and years, and if you go to the Ritz-Carlton in St. Louis, or where you live, somewhere near Florida, you're in Florida. I don't know if there's a Ritz-Carlton in your neighborhood or not.
Not in Gainesville, but close, in Jacksonville.
Right.
Yeah.
You can go, and there's 24 of these. And by the way, you can go over to Singapore, where the Ritz is. Every day, before every shift starts, the managers talk about the credo and they talk about one of these drivers. And every hotel is talking about the same one. So today it might be number 3. Every hotel in the industry. And they do that every day for 24 straight days. And at the end of 24 days, guess what they do? They start over with number 1. It's like shampoo. You lather, you rinse, you repeat. I don't know that so much anymore, but I hear that's what they still do. But that's really what they do. So at the end of a year, chances are you've heard this, a dozen times, each one of these. Different companies say, well, we've got our 10 commandments. So I suggest, well, how do you constantly keep this in front of people? Well, good question. Which everybody knows them. No, they don't know them. So what I would suggest is take one of those commandments, and all week long, that's the focus. And at your weekly meeting, say, hey, everybody, give me an example of how you, use that 10 commandment or first commandment or whatever it is, that number this week. And every week, we're going to focus on one of the commandments, and you're going to share an example. So you're constantly creating what I call service awareness, making people aware of the great service that they create by coming up with their own stories from their own examples and their own experiences.
And I think what you're talking about is you're talking about creating habit, which drives the culture.
Yep,
and then that culture can focus.
And all the time, and you're always thinking about it, and it is a habit.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think about companies. I used to work for a company where safety was a core value. And so just to build that culture around safety, every morning we started with a safety, some kind of safety discussion. So what you're saying is those companies that want to have a strong customer focus culture, they need to create those habits around that.
Create the habits, keep it in front of the people, constantly train them. And training isn't something you did, it's something you do. We bring somebody on, let's put them through 2 weeks of training before we let them come to work for the company. What do you do after the 2 weeks? By the way, when it comes to customer service, give them your course on customer service. If you want, it could be a big one, a long one, it doesn't matter. But every week or so, you should take 5 or 10 minutes and talk about it and make sure people remember how important it is. Because a soft skill is easily lost if it's not constantly used. Mm-hmm. God, that's a tweetable line. I've never heard that.
I might steal that from you, Shep. I know that to be true also. In talking to people about soft skills, things like even just coaching or how to, inspire others. Those aren't things that you can just go to a training course on and say, okay, now I'm an expert in this. You actually have to practice it, celebrate it, track it, understand it, know what it looks like, know what success is, et cetera, until it becomes just part of what you do and who you are. So I can relate with that. I wanted to talk a little bit about your new book, if that's okay.
Sure. I would love to talk about the new book.
Because I took a peek and I absolutely loved the concept behind it. I don't want to steal your thunder, but in terms of is it the convenience principle?
The convenience revolution.
The convenience revolution. Yep. And I find to be like, this is one of those concepts that, it's just so easy to think about, but
it's obvious.
It's obvious, but not a whole lot of people do it, right?
Yeah.
And I think about a situation just yesterday. I was on the phone with American Express, who I've been a member of since 1998. And the reason, though, I'm with them as a loyal cardholder, it's not because they charge me a huge annual fee, right, compared to some of the others, but they provide such convenient service. And I never thought about it until I listened to what you had to say about your book. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what that means, what it looks like, and if you can share a couple concepts from your book, that'd be great.
So it started out about a year and a half before I started writing the book. An editor on the book that I was doing, Be Amazing or Go Home, said, why do you use some of the companies that you write about? They were just looking through my work, and I said, I like the companies. No, tell me more. Well, they're great at service. Specifically, what do they do great? Well, there's many different things they do great. And then I started thinking, there's one thing most of them have in common, and that is they're just easier to do business with than a competitor. Wow, easy to do business with, convenient, no friction. A guy I'm friends with, Matt Dixon, wrote a book called The Effortless Experience. And I've always, in the back of my mind, loved that book. And I thought, why didn't I write that book? Well, he wrote it with a partner. And that book was about what happens when you have a problem and you need to get it resolved, or a question and you needed to answer for it. And that is how easy it is. What is the effort to get that resolved or answered? That's what happens in the customer service department, if you will. That's after the sale. Well, my whole thing about service isn't a department, it's a philosophy. And I therefore think that an effortless experience isn't about having an effortless experience with the department. It's effortless throughout the entire process. And that means from the moment somebody thinks about it, they go on a website, is it easy to navigate? If I needed to call them, is it easy to find the phone number? Have you ever tried to find a phone number for a company? You just look everywhere, you just can't seem to find it. You can't find the address where you can send something to. It's very frustrating. So I started looking at all these companies and realizing that's what I love about them, and it's the whole journey. So in my research, I said, and I hired a college intern to come in with me, and I said, let's just brainstorm. And we came up with hundreds of companies that we thought were convenient. I said, good. Now I want you to go and help me. Let's do a paragraph on each one just to get this whole thing started. And we did 2-3 sentences on basically a statement of why we think this is a convenient company, what they do. And by the way, you go to a company like Amazon, which is a lead case study that covers all 6 of the convenience principles, and we can list 25 things that make Amazon convenient for us. But, Domino's Pizza, well, they deliver to you. Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. My car dealership, they deliver to me. So hundreds of companies. And then we identified like these 6 buckets that the convenience ideas can fall into. And then we started narrowing them down, like what are by that time he was back at school. So now I'm on my own. And by that time, I only had about 250 companies to look at. And I narrowed it down to about 36, and then I continued to do a little deeper research on each one of these. I wanted some recognizable names and some that weren't so recognizable. And Amazon, as I mentioned, my lead case study, and then we had the 6 principles and 5 examples in each. And real quickly, it's reducing friction, which is in all 6, but some make it their entire value proposition. I believe Amazon falls into that one as well. But they also have great self-service. They have use technology. There's a subscription model. It just shows up like clockwork. You just pay for it. It happens all the time. There's delivery, companies that take it to you. And then there's access, either logistically, how many locations do you have? What are your hours of operation? So a company can be really, super convenient in just one of these categories or multiples, if not all of them. And one company, my car dealership, I'd been doing business with somebody for 25 years, and I looked at a car at a different dealership, and I said, I'm not going to buy from you. You're too far away. And he said, when you buy from us, we take the car to you, and every time you need service, we'll bring you a brand new car. We'll pick yours up. We'll bring yours back when it's done. The next time you come in here is to buy a new car, not because of getting the car serviced. And I thought, even for an oil change? And he goes, oh, yeah, that's service, anything you need. And I thought, wow, and what does that cost? And it didn't cost really anything more. He was very competitive. And guess what? He stole me away from somebody I'd done business with for 25 years. And that's called disrupting the competition. And then there's companies like Uber who disrupted the entire taxi cab industry when they created a more convenient solution, and they fall under the concept of reducing friction. The car dealership is delivery, and they're reducing friction. If I want a car to take me to the airport, back when now I live kind of in a more urban area, but when I was in the suburban area, I had to call to get a cab to come and pick me up, and sometimes it'd be 10 or 15 minutes, and I'd be a little anxious. Are they really going to get here? Well, with Uber, you see who's around you. You push the button, and you can see them driving down the street on the screen, and they know where you're going. You know how much it costs ahead of time. Yep. You don't have to reach in your pocket to pay them when you leave. So there's examples. So they're reducing friction. Technology, God, there's so many great companies. PayPal, Venmo, which are Venmo's owned by PayPal. To get money from me to you, it's easier than ever. They created that technology.
Scarily, right?
I know sometimes it is scarily.
Yeah.
Send me as much as you want. I'll give you. I make sure you know how to do it. So, so that's technology. SelfService. How many times do we go to look up information so we don't have to make the phone call, and we find it easily? Self-service. We already talked about delivery. The subscription model. I don't know. You can subscribe to anything now. You can subscribe to a car. Porsche has a great Porsche, Volvo, Cadillac. A number of the brands have programs now where you can actually subscribe month to month, not a long-term lease, just 1 month at a time, subscribe to the car, drop the subscription whenever you want. And what's cool is that if there's different levels, like Porsche has different levels. If I subscribe at the highest level, the most expensive level, I get to drive the fancy car. And if I want to turn it in for a different car next week, I could do the SUV, I could do the, 4-door sedan. I can switch cars, 20 times if I wanted to. That's because I subscribe. I don't buy. I don't lease. I'm not locked in. Chewy.com.
Yep.
Yeah, it's convenient. It's dog food delivered to your doorstep, Chewy.com. So that's subscription, and we mentioned delivery, and then access. 24 hours a day access to Amazon's website. If I pick up the phone to make a call to a support line, I don't hear hours are between 8 and 5, and it's like 8 o'clock at night. I guess I have to call while I'm at work. Logistics. There's within, 90% of America is within 10 minutes of a Walmart, something like that, some crazy stat. And Starbucks, if you live in an urban area. I checked this out, and it's in the book. I use Starbucks as an example of logistical access. In Houston, there is on each corner, opposite of each other, and then not block down, one building down, there are 3 Starbucks within 500 feet of each other. And wow, that's access.
Whenever you want it, right? As much as you want.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, and all of those, it's about driving a more convenient, frictionless experience. The company that creates the least amount of friction wins.
And again, it's such and nothing to take away from the book because it's such a simple concept. But
it is.
We've never really thought about it. I have never really thought about it in that way. You've never framed it in that way. And, also what's interesting is that all of these principles that you talk about in the convenience revolution is built upon the habits that you create as well. So these companies can't be that convenient without building a culture of excellence within customer experience, I would imagine.
Right, and they have to find the places to be convenient. And by the way, you mentioned they sound so simple. Simple isn't always easy. Sometimes what appears to be so simple in thought, example, let's talk about the dash button that Amazon just recently stopped selling. The dash button, if you didn't know it, is a little doorbell-looking button that is tied to a specific item that you buy from Amazon, and it's a consumable. Maybe it's toothpaste, washing machine detergent, whatever. And so they get you this dash button, and if you like, it's washing machine detergent, you put this in your laundry room, and when you're running low on Tide or whatever it is that you buy, you just push the button, and it shows up the next day. You no longer have to open the computer in order to make a purchase from Amazon. So think about that. But now they stopped it. Why did they stop it? Well, you don't need it anymore. Why? Because you got the Amazon Echo. You don't have to push a button. Just say, I'm not going to mention her name because she's right behind me there. You know,
you might get a delivery.
It's Alexis.
Yeah.
Okay. Or Alexa.
Yeah.
I go, but if you say, hey, Alexa, I need more detergent, and she will respond, would you like to order the same detergent as last time, or something like that? And yes. Okay, I'll order it for you. You don't even have to push a button anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So they've done away with that because it really just didn't make things easier. Now they've got something in place to be able to do that.
they made something that was really easy even easier. Mm-hmm. You know, Domino's Pizza is another one. When I was a kid, the way to get a Domino's Pizza was to pick up the telephone and call. Today, on their website, there's more than 10 ways you can order a Domino's, and you can of course use the phone, but here's 10 other ways that you can do it too.
Yeah. I'm kind of old school though. I kind of like to pick up the phone. I don't know. But anyway, all of these things that we're talking about in terms of the habits that we can create, whether it's in our own personal leadership to build our own capabilities, or whether it's in organizational leadership to be a market leader, all of these things also lead to what others say about us as a company or a business.
It's a reputation.
Right? So it's word of mouth, right? Whether good or bad. I had an experience just yesterday I won't share now because I don't want to give a bad experience about a company.
You can change their name to protect the innocent.
I can absolutely do that. Basically, I ordered an online service, paid for it up front, and never received the service. So then when I went to go call, couldn't find the phone number, couldn't find anyone to talk to. I emailed, texted, online chatted, all the things that you should be able to do to get in touch with somebody, and I got no response. So in my circle of network, not on this show, but I will share the name with everybody so that
with your
they
friends
don't do
and
business.
Family. You're not going to go badmouth somebody publicly like that. And I think that's a great idea, by the way, that you don't do that. Mm-hmm. I used to do the Hall of Fame and the Hall of Shame in my newsletters years and years ago, but I never gave the company's name in the Hall of Shame. And so people would write in, why don't you tell us the name of the company so we stay away from them? I go, no, it's the lesson we can learn from them, but let's give applause to the companies that do it right and recognize them. And I believe in our business, where we're talking to literally thousands, if not, a million people eventually, or hopefully many more, if one of our clients hears us bad-mouthing a company publicly, they might think, I wonder what would happen if they did, if something happened, what would they do to us?
Right.
So you don't ever want to plant that seed in their mind.
Yeah.
So you'll never hear me talk bad about a company. Like, you can always cut down the airlines, and I'll never talk about the airline. I always use like initials like AA for Anonymous Airlines, not American. No, I love American Airlines. They know I love them. I use them. They're my and I always write it and talk about the great experiences I have with them.
But I know that word of mouth. I mean, like, that experience with my family, I'm going to share that experience with my family so they don't try to use that same company locally, right?
Yep.
But that word of mouth goes a long way. So it could impact us as an individual, like as an individual in our space, wherever we're leading ourselves, or it can impact an organization in their business and how they attract clients or they don't attract clients. So what would you say in terms of, if you had to leave people that are listening or watching this podcast with 2 or 3 things, like big chunky things that perhaps would create and generate some really positive word of mouth? Can you summarize for us?
Yeah.
Just a couple key things we can do.
So first of all, I want you to think of the Bonnie Raitt song, Let's Give Them Something to Talk About.
I love it. Okay. I'm going to start singing it for you.
That could be my theme song. Let's give them something to talk about.
You can play the guitar. I'll sing. How about that?
Okay. Good deal. Good, because I definitely, you know what I did with the money? What money? The money my parents gave me for music lessons. I didn't spend it on singing.
Oh, no.
But no, so give them something to talk about. And here's what I want you to think about. The best way to start is first of all, it's philosophical. Customer service and experience is not a department, it's a philosophy. So you need to get everybody on board. Create that vision statement we talked about. Make it one sentence or less. Ours is always be amazing. I mentioned the Ritz-Carlton, where ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. You can have fun with it. Company out of Nashville, Symbiosis. Theirs is a little bit longer, but it's still one sentence. We love our customers so much, when we kiss them, their lips bleed. Now, I know. That's what I thought. I had that funny look. But then I thought about it. That's how passionate they are. And obviously, they're metaphorically kissing them. Mm-hmm. And they're letting them know that we love you that much. It's like, we just want to take care of you. Mm-hmm. So create that vision statement. I want you to take a look. And this is old school, so to speak. And you use that term, and I love that term, old school. It's journey mapping. Journey map the heck out of your business, especially at the top line to start with. Top line being wherever your touch points are, the interaction points that you have with your customers, and look at every single one of those and say, is there a way to make this better? Is there a company, let's say it's like, when the customer calls in, the phone is answered by the receptionist. Well, how are we doing with that? By the way, let me think. What's my favorite company I've ever called where I just love that receptionist that answered, or love the experience? Maybe we don't have it. Maybe it's our company. We got sophisticated. We put in, an interactive virtual response system. So you call up, push 1 for this, 2 for that, 34 for that, 35 for that. Is that really the best experience? Well, it's convenient for us, but it's not very convenient for our customers. Why doesn't customers just say, please connect me with Vicky, and I'll put you right through, or I'll take a message. So could we be doing it better? And by the way, that's such a basic example, but look at every interaction and touch point you have. Mm-hmm. And then look what happens behind the scenes. What's driving those touch points? I talk about how if I were to check my bags and here in St. Louis, I'm going to come to visit you in Gainesville. By the time I get there a few hours later, and I see my bag on the baggage carousel, the airline did it right, I don't really think anything about it. But do you know how many people had to touch my bag to get that bag to that baggage carousel? Probably 20 people. It went down the conveyor belt, somebody looked at it, scanned it, put it on a cart, somebody got it to the right pile, got it to the airplane, put it on all these different people, and then it reversed when it got to the destination. None of those people saw my smiling face, but if they didn't do their job, huge impact on me, the outside customer that they never saw. Absolutely. They also have an internal customer, and that's the poor soul that stands behind the counter that has to deal with all the people that didn't get their baggage on that baggage carousel. Mm-hmm. So if this person behind the scenes doesn't do their job, they're impacting both their internal and their external customer. So find out what drives those top line, touch points and interaction points, and manage those behind the scenes as well. And finally, the big thing is figure out a way to be more convenient. We talked about the 6 convenience principles. You can find plenty of free information. I've written so many articles about this. Just find it. Just Google my name, Hyken, Hyken plus convenience, and you'll find it. And just incorporate some ways to be easier for your customer.
I love it. I love it. You mentioned internal customer. We don't have time to go into that today, but maybe you can come back again in the future. We can kind of focus on that internal customer as well.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Shep. I really appreciate you being with us here today. You've given us a lot of great things to think about and hopefully some things to talk about as well later on. But we'll be back in just a moment with some final thoughts on Ignite.
I'm James Packer. I'm the General Manager of Kirk ISS based in the Cayman Islands. I used IT Pro TV extensively in my last place. It grew very well, helped upskill the team. I had 110 engineers in the field and we had dozens of IT Pro accounts with the guys training, and last year alone they passed over 40 certs by using the online training. I think I can safely say without IT Pro TV I wouldn't be where I was today, because I only got this job on the back of the qualifications I have.
Welcome back. So much great information from Shep. And the bottom line, habits that your team builds around the customer experience makes a huge difference in your company becoming a market leader. Thanks for joining us. And from all of us here at Ignite, I'm Vicky Guy.